This year, Craftsman and my crew at the Roadster Shop are teaming up to convert this Chevrolet C-10 into a high-performance muscle truck to be shown off at SEMA in Las Vegas and auctioned off at Barrett-Jackson. Roadster Shop has already received several accolades in the hot rod community, and I'm proud that it's all been run by myself and my two sons. My name is Neil Gerber, and I'm the owner of the Roadster Shop along with my two sons. The Roadster Shop started in 2004. I ended up selling the collision business that I was in, and these two guys were stuck without a job. Three of us sat down one day and said, what do you guys want to do? And they said they wanted to build custom cars.
I pretty much had hot rod magazines tucked into most of my school books. I guess all those magazines that I was reprimanded for reading, I'm on the cover of them now, so who's laughing now?
We each have a specialized area of the shop, and we both have the same mentality and both really have the same goals for the company, so it works out really well.
Deep down inside, I wanted my boys to grow up to be just like their dad, and that's how they ended up.
I think my mom really appreciates that. I've always kind of gone by the motto that a man's is only as good as his tools. I think it was like my 7th birthday I got my first Craftsman toolbox. I've still got that toolbox today. You know, to run the tools you gotta have the right guys, so we've got probably some of the most talented guys in the industry. Other types of shops out there, they really focus in on one thing. There's guys building chassis, there's shops that are building cars, and there's shops that are just machining parts. We're doing that all under one roof.
The plan for this Craftsman C-10 project is to start with a kind of worn out 1969 farm truck and really transform that into something that'll have modern supercar performance, the look and feel of a classic 1969 Chevy pickup that so many people love.
Craftsman will show you every step of the process. Give or take a few secrets we like to keep to ourselves. The 2013 Restoration Rollout Series takes you into the Roadster Shop to see this truck get restored and modified from the chassis to the engine to the body and interior. So stay tuned by following Craftsman on Facebook or by being a Craftsman Club member to see all the episodes and participate in promotions.
From when we got the truck to when we finish this truck, it's going to be a night and day change.
Finding the right candidate for the Roadster Shop's next high-performance muscle truck is a process. VP of Sales and Marketing, Phil Gerber, explains how they found this 1969 Chevy C-10 and what you should look for while gearing up for your own resto mod.
For this Craftsman project, we probably looked at a couple hundred different trucks all over the country. Really wanted to find something that was, again, good and solid, unrestored, something that didn't have rust like these trucks are pretty well known for.
Alright guys, we're going to take this old farm truck here and we're going to turn it into a killer pro touring truck for our friends at Craftsman. So we're going to get rocking and rolling on it, and we got 4 months to do it because it's going to SEMA.
May not look like too much now being a beat up old farm truck, but going to turn it into a short bed, put it on one of our chassis, put a big LS motor in it, and make it handle.
We kind of got lucky when we found this truck. I was looking online on Craigslist and I found it in Northwest Arkansas, and it just so happened that I had a good friend who owns another hot rod shop that was 5 miles down the road and had him go look at it. He kind of knew what to look for as well. We kind of discussed the common areas to take a look at the bottoms of the doors, look at the rocker panels, the cab corners. Really the best thing you can do is take a look at the car in person. There's a lot that can be hidden in a picture. With a build like this, we're really getting rid of everything. The only thing we're reusing are the body panels. Things like motor, transmission, wheels aren't really too big of a concern.
With just a few weeks till the debut of this truck, Phil is confident of the form this truck of metal and rust will shape into.
Cab bolts came out pretty easy. The bed's all froze up. I'm just gonna cut them. That's the best way of doing it. Get it done.
this episode, the guys are working on disassembly and rust repair. The body of the truck needs to be taken apart down to the frame. After that, they can focus on the rust repair. I know just the guys to do it, too.
My name is Dean Ellis. I work with the guys to fabricate this stuff.
My name is Pat Finley. I'm a welder fabricator here at the Roadster Shop. There is no real specific process with disassembling a truck like that.
The way we did it is we took the front clip off of the truck, we took the doors off, and then lifted the truck up.
Since this truck hasn't aged well, some parts were stubborn.
The bolts on the bed were all rusted. You just get the torch out, cut them off. It's really the easiest way to do it. We dropped it down, make sure everything's disconnected, lifted the bed off, and then lifted the cab off.
As the truck comes apart, the pieces we'll still be using are set aside for rust repair, while the rest is discarded. One thing you might want to be wary of when disassembling your own future hot rod is making sure all lines and tanks are empty.
We pulled the radiator hose loose, thinking that it might have had no radiator fluid in it. Of course, it was full, so there's a gallon or two of radiator fluid on the floor. We were working on pulling the gas tank out, and the line broke. We couldn't get it pinched off, so it was just running gas everywhere. Hey. That gas smelled more like turpentine. It was probably in there for 20, 25 years.
With the disasters and disassembly behind them, it's on to taking care of the rust.
When we were done disassembling the truck, we sent it off to get bead blasted.
Bead blasting is like sandblasting, but it's slower, gentler, and uses glass beads at lower pressure.
When we got the truck back from the bead blaster, we noticed that there was quite a bit more rust than we expected.
Good thing Dean doesn't really pay attention to problems, only solutions.
You keeping your eye on Dean? Making sure he's working?
You just have to cut the metal far enough back until you have good metal to weld onto. It made a new firewall for it, new kick panels. We were able to cut the bad sections of the rocker panels out and graft the new rocker panels in there to give us something to build off of.
And with that, the disassembly and rust repair is done. Now the body's ready for our signature chassis. But how do we create such perfection? That's in the next episode. The chassis is what we feel makes the Roadster Shop stand out in the hot rod community. In this episode, we designed the perfect chassis to make an old C-10 dominate a road course.
On this muscle truck that we're doing for Craftsman, it's going from a long bed and we're turning it into a short bed. So with that, the chassis is kind of an essential piece.
Before a chassis can be built, it must be mocked up by our design and engineering team. Specifically, this guy.
My name is Mike O'Brien and I'm the mechanical engineer here at the Roadster Shop. I design and measure out most all the chassis that we do here before they go into production on the floor. With the steps on this Chevy C-10, we had an original frame here that we had and we brought it in. We measured everything out, the frame rail widths, where the front and rear sections need to be for the tires. We need to notch the rear of it up since the truck is so low to the ground, the axle would have went through the frame, so we had to notch that out. All the body mounts that we figured out, we reset the tracks a little bit on it so that it kind of sat with that aggressive stance. Basically just taking all of that and then getting it into the computer and then getting it out so that Dean and the guys in the back could get everything fabbed up.
That starts with the CNC machine. All the pieces for the chassis are cut out, then taken to get welded. During all of this, Mike's keeping a watchful eye.
I'm out there double checking the measurements with the guys out there. If they have questions, if something needs to be modified, or if they want to check a fit or a clearance on something, I'm out there with them making sure that everything is there so that it reflects that original design as much as possible.
With the welds done, the spots need to be grinded out, then polished. Once that's done, the chassis is powder coated and handed off to the assembly team.
My name is Brian. I do all the final assembly here at the Roadster Shop. We get the chassis back from powder coating and we start to put the front suspension together, which consists of upper and lower control arms, spindle, hub bearing, steering rack and pinion, outer tie rods. Then we move to the back of the chassis where we install the 4 bars, the 9-inch housing, the center section, and the rear shocks. Then we'll go ahead and we'll start to put the brakes together on the chassis, and then we'll install all the brake lines, fuel lines, motor mounts. Pretty much ready to start assembling then.
This custom chassis, it'll allow that muscle truck to go from, you know, what was just an old farm truck to something that you can either just cruise it down the road and drive it like a new car, or you can drive this thing to a racetrack. You'll roll up there next to guys in, you know, $250,000 Porsches, and they kind of look and laugh at you. You kind of look like a redneck rolling up in this old pickup truck until you go out there and dust them on the track, and then people start coming over and asking questions.
After all of that work, we're ready to do a little pre-assembly. But you'll have to check out the next episode for all of that. The signature Roadster Shop chassis is done, and now it's time to mount the body. But since this truck is going to be lowered, there's a complex process that needs to be addressed.
Well, I guess when it comes to lowering cars, you know, we're kind of a glutton for punishment. You know, we always go like that little extra inch.
That extra inch means Jeremy Gerber and his team have to make room and fabricate new parts.
Because we lowered the truck, the suspension, chassis, everything comes up through the floor. So we had to cut the whole center section out of the bed and make a panel that goes over the rear axle, and then fabricate new wheel tubs to fit the wheels up into them.
Both the new section of the bed and the wheel tubs had a bead roller used on them, but the tubs took shape in a slightly different way.
The tubs are a little bit more complicated. You know, there's easier ways of doing it, but the way we do it, it takes a fair amount of sheet metal shaping. So instead of just forming, bending, you know, we're actually shrinking, stretching, plenishing.
Up front, part of the engine bay was cleared out to make way for larger wheelhouses to accommodate the larger tires. This meant other pieces like hood hinges needed to be rearranged. Overall, lowering the truck helps in a couple of ways.
The ride height's kind of everything on a car. When you walk up on it, you know, you might not know exactly what it is that looks cool, but if it just sits right, it's got the right stance, low to the ground, then it just grabs your eye.
Once those modifications were done, the rest of the body is put on the chassis to make sure everything lines up. Unfortunately, there will be some gaps.
Sometimes you can get the gaps, but other times you have to cut and actually move some metal around to make them look right.
And that's exactly what we'll do next episode when we work on gapping the body.